Hey guys, today I've got something very special. The prevalence of OLED screens in larger sizes being, well, dominating. But now it's time to get to smaller sizes and actually more for the common people. Without the common people price yet, but we're slowly moving towards it. Right here we have an ROG Swift OLED PG27AQDM. It is a 27-inch OLED monitor. Actually it's 26.5, but well, they call it 27-inch anyway. This particular unit is using LG panel with 1000 nit brightness. It is running at 240 Hz, and it's actually very color accurate, but that's kind of the beauty of OLED. Let's open up and have a look what we get inside. As I mentioned, this is actually a color accurate display, and it actually comes with a factory calibration sheet. This panel has been calibrated with delta E of 1.19. That's actually better than our editing PC, so we're gonna have to test that out and see. Also in the box we have some stickers and some other accessories, packed with loads of cables. That's USB uplink cable, display port, and HDMI. So the ASUS monitors have a little LED light that shines downwards, and these are the different inserts for what you want to shine through. So we'll show that a bit later on. This monitor unfortunately doesn't feature an internal power supply, so we actually have a separate power brick with a cable. We have the VESA mount for the back of it, and I think we're going to need to use that to mount onto the actual desk stand. Some extra power cables depending on your region. One interesting thing about this particular monitor is the weight. So it's actually, the panel itself without the stand is only 2.8 kilos. And with the stand together, it's 6.9. So the monitor itself is not that heavy. And that's one of the benefits of OLED as well. You generally get things smaller and lighter. Based on the design of this leg, I think when the line shines down, it's actually going to be shining through and give it a little bit of a pattern, but we'll have to check that out a bit later on. And lastly, we have that aforementioned cover for the bottom, which will shine down onto the table. And this is where you can change the inserts, the little coin inserts. Actually, I think it has a peel on both sides. You really want to remove these peels if you actually want to use this, because extra layers of plastic will reduce the amount of brightness you have, and you just won't look as good. That's it from this top side, so I can take that off. One thing to note, on the back here, there's actually a quick start guide on how to set up the monitor. So use these instructions so you don't accidentally drop your monitor when you're setting up. You can take the VESA mount and install that inside here, and then mount it obviously like a normal VESA. Or you use the existing mount, and you'll see it has little contacts here, and that's for the LEDs and extra features. So make sure to point that the right way. Slot it in, and it's done. It's now nice and solid. Next, we take the leg, and we just slot it in, and it has a little screw at the bottom. Just kind of screw it in. I like that it's got a screw on top as well as a little lever, so actually do it by hand. Your fingers. And lastly, the little light diffuser, and it's actually magnetic, so you just kind of go. With this bottom mount, what you might need to do is actually twist it a few times until you find the right position. But when you do, the magnets actually really hold on to it really well. Oh wow, so I can immediately notice the fact that it's super thin. It's reminiscent of OLED TVs. Very impressive. Well, that was very satisfying. In a typical ROG fashion, there is 1,000,001 little places where you need to peel off bits of plastic. I like how they protect all of the logos and all the little nitty-gritty details, but also there's just so much. It takes like 10 minutes just to find them all. But here we go. That's the screen unpacked. It has a full-blown motion, so it goes up and down. You can twist it on its own axis, and then also has a proper tilt control. So it feels very solid. I do like that the back of it is actually kind of grayish, kind of gunmetal gray rather than just black, and it's matted. It's not glossy, so it's not really leaving any fingerprints, which is kind of cool. With the monitor out of the bag, let me just get on with testing it, and I'll come back to you once I've played some games. And games we played. And it's nice to finally take a break from all the benchmarking and actually play some games. I gotta say, F1 2022 was an absolute blast, even with all the crashes. The visual experience was also mind-blowing. We've had an OLED TV for years now, and I already knew how awesome it was, but having it on my desk in a compact form is a whole new level of amazing. With 1440p at 240Hz, it's not the hardest thing to run too. We've used the recently released RTX 4070, and in most AAA titles that I tested, I didn't really have to worry about lacking performance, and I could always turn on DLSS to give me that extra boost. When it came to the competitive games, it had enough power to keep me ahead of the game. Another thing that stands out with OLED is how insanely fast the response times are. It really adds to the overall snappy feel of the game, which is just awesome. Oh, and by the way, if you're new here, I'd love you to consider subscribing to the channel. We've got loads more content like this coming your way. The brightness is also one of the main features, and in some ways it's almost a distraction at first. I certainly had to get adjusted after using a much dimmer display as my main daily driver. To achieve this level of brightness, ASUS have included a pretty hefty heatsink at the back. There is also an anti-glare coating on the display, which works really well. One thing to note though, this monitor doesn't come with any built-in speakers, but let's be real. If you're spending this kind of money on a monitor, you probably already have great sound setup with headphones or speakers. Plus, the lack of speakers keeps this unit looking sleek and slim. In the unboxing, I mentioned that these panels come calibrated out of the factory with average delta E under 2, and that is true. However, our test revealed slightly different results than what's on the spec sheet. We found in sRGB mode it was 1.7 average and 4.1 max, while in DCI-P3 mode it was 2.5 average and 5.7 max. Despite the small variation, both these results are still very impressive, even for professional photo and video editing. Nevertheless, if you have workflows that use DCI-P3 and you need color accuracy, then calibration will be necessary. When checking color volume, we find in sRGB mode we have 112% coverage of the BT709 space, and in DCI-P3 mode we have much higher coverage of BT709 color space and 112 as well in DCI-P3. That being said, this is a high refresh rate 1440p display, and it may not be the best choice for creators who require highest level of color accuracy. Personally, we use 32-inch 4K color accurate displays. For us, more screen real estate is certainly a priority in comparison to high refresh rate. While we were reviewing this monitor, ASUS released the new firmware to improve its HDR color accuracy, which is a nice touch. Let's shift our focus to some of the physical features of this monitor, starting with the camera or light mounting hole and the stand. I can see how some people might want to install a bracket and use it for their streaming setup. It's a really thoughtful addition by ASUS, and it just adds to the monitor's versatility. Moving on to the display itself, it has two buttons as well as a clickable joystick to manage the settings. I love both these choices and now would call that top tier. Sometimes just using joystick is a bit of a pain to turn off the display if you just push it slightly to the angle. Here you can just use a button for it. I know it's very much a first world problem, but trust me, when you're using the monitor for hours on end, every little convenience counts. It's also worth mentioning the lighting features of this monitor, which includes the lights on the back and below the stand. The bottom light in particular can be quite bright, even on lower settings. While there are certain settings to control the lighting on the monitor itself, it's probably best to control them through the PC and sync them with the rest of your components. By the way, as promised, here are some different options how the plastic insets below look like. However, I would caution that during gaming the lighting may be a bit distracting. It's definitely a cool feature, but may not be for everyone, especially those who prefer more subdued gaming setup. I mentioned earlier that this display can be raised, panned and tilted, but what's really nice, they can also be moved into a vertical orientation on either side. This is great for cable management as you can plan out your setup depending on which side the monitor is on. However, one thing to know about OLED displays is that they have an inherent risk of picture retention or burn-in.
This display does have some usual protections like pixel cleaning, and I highly recommend keeping that on. It's also important to follow the best practices when using OLED, like not leaving the same image on for an extended period of time. If I really wanted to be nitpicky with this unit, then I would like to see USB Type-C ports as well as support for HDMI 2.1, so people playing on consoles could really enjoy this at 240Hz, providing the console can actually run it that fast. Currently HDMI is limited to 120Hz. Overall, this ASUS 27-inch OLED gaming monitor is an excellent display that offers exceptional image quality, fast response times, and many features that add to its value. Although it's priced at the higher side, it will be worth for those who want to get the best visual experience possible. Feel free to check out the links in the description below for more information on that. We hope you found this review helpful. If you did, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more. We'll see you guys in the next one.